premiere week of Snowfall gives us 2 episodes, and boy, this gets intense. Hello, everyone. Terrence here with Hollywood Already Did It. If you haven't already, go ahead, like, share, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, ring that bell below. Anytime we have something, you will be among the first to know. Second episode of Snowfall, final season, is called The Sit Down, which obviously means, hopefully, at some point in time in this episode, Jerome and Franklin sit down with each other and have just a meaningful, civil conversation. Yeah, that's not going to happen in this episode. Fallout from the episode titled Fallout. Jerome returns back to Louis and kind of lets him know the situation. He seems pretty broken up. Mind you, yes, he snapped. He did what he had to do to get the money back for his family. But Jerome has consistently, especially that's what a lot of season 5 was about. He did not want to be a part of this life. Louis sort of drug him back into this. Franklin started that off. He's in this because his wife wants to be in it, not because he wants to be. He informs Louis that I think I may have killed Diamond. And he's a bit broken by that. Then we see Franklin arrives at the hospital with Dallas waiting, and Dallas informs him that it was Jerome. And all of a sudden, we hear the doctor give out the information that Diamond is not going to make it. She has a brain bleed that they could not fix, and she's dead. Now we got bodies on top of bodies on bodies. There's bodies on Jerome's side. There's bodies on Franklin's side. It's now a mess. We're informed that Parissa was never actually taken captive by Ruben. Ruben saw her. She ran, tried to get over a gate, bumped her head, and was then caught by the police. She was incoherent at that point in time, so they just detained her until she could kind of come back to. So that's where she was, and that was why it was so easy for Teddy to be able to go find her. But Sissy has now finally set up the meet with Ruben and Franklin. Sissy kind of sees that something's off with Franklin. After the information, Franklin does not seem to be in the best spirits. So he sort of debriefs her. It seems like it happens off screen because she seems to be aware of things post that scene. But there's a moment where Franklin just kind of like on the way over to go meet Ruben, sort of just tells her what's what. But they meet, and Ruben and Franklin sort of have a conversation. And Ruben is asking, like, hey, whatever it is, your business dealings with Teddy, I need to know that. And that's at that point, Franklin just comes out and is truthful with him, like, look, I don't have any, like, as of 2 days ago, my business relationship with Teddy is no longer active. However, he is working with my uncle and aunt, and I know the practices of that. And Ruben, somewhat disappointed, but still seems intrigued by it. Like, okay, well, that doesn't completely dissuade me from this. I need you to start me from the beginning of how you met Teddy and sort of what his practices and what he is doing, how it all comes together. He reconvenes with Sissy, and Ruben sort of gives him a little taste or treat to say, hey, you're not doing this for nothing. Here's what I'm offering to get this information. And at that point, Franklin sort of tells him the first time that he met Teddy about the T-boning, being held captive, waterboarding, all that stuff. Gets him that information. It's being recorded as well. So Ruben eventually takes that back to his superior to kind of get more leverage, to get more feet on people's necks, if you will. As Sissy and Franklin are leaving, Sissy just straight up asks him, like, what is your end goal? Which is kind of my question in the last episode. Like, what is your end goal? Like, what do you want out of this? And Franklin's first response is like, I want my money back. I want the life that I had before Teddy took it. Like, I want all of that back. I want to be made whole. And Sissy just starts questioning Franklin about, like, hey, is there no part of you that thinks that some of this and what you're doing is by design? Like, Teddy wants you to fight with each other. Now, we know that on Teddy's end, that's not necessarily the case. He didn't think this was going to be that case. But Sissy has this. She has it out for Teddy. She believes that this is the case, and there's some believability to this. Like back in the day, house slaves versus field slaves, lighter skinned African Americans versus darker skinned African Americans. She goes down the sort of the lineage of how this all comes to play. Like this is what he's trying to do. He's trying to pit you together so that you kind of infight and just self destroy. And Franklin's listening, but he's kind of like, I think it's too late. I think we sort of have gone too far. It's just like, look, he'll still listen to me. If you think I open the door, if I become the mediator to the two of you, would you be willing to listen and go through that door? And it seems, based on how the rest of this episode goes, it does seem like he says, "Yeah, let's make that happen." Franklin and V have a combo. She comes back and shows him like the new bank accounts and how everything is set up down there in Miami. They are the only two who have access to the account. No one else does. But it is at that point where V sort of says, "What are we doing? Like, Diamond is gone, and are you keeping an eye on Dallas? And like now there's going to be an eye, and are you going to kill somebody on behalf of Diamond? Like this is going to be a vicious cycle. Like when does this end?" It's at that point that he gets a page and is made aware that Kane is awake and alive and coherent. And he has to go. He's going to go see him. V's like, if you love me, don't give Kane the information that he's seeking for. Like, don't keep this cycle of violence going because this is just going to get messier and messier if we go down that rabbit hole, and it's just going to get to a hole where we can't get out of, and our family can't get out of. You're only going to make this worse. We then see a scene where V makes a call or gets a call page from her mom, Cassandra, who she wants to set up a combo that they can meet. Unfortunately, once you sort of open this door up into V's past, all the things that kind of come with it also sort of fall in there as well. We then see Jerome and Louie having to do sort of cleanup about their stash houses being hit and like not having any supplies, so they can't come through on doing their part of the deal with their drugs. And so it's not going well. They have to kind of make agreements and do some side bets and promise things that Teddy has promised to them that Teddy is not giving to them. So they're kind of like making promises, extending loans that they don't have the cash for. So it's becoming this big cycle that they're kind of getting further and further in. And then they get the page that Kane is awake. And they're like, oh, crap. Goes from one bad thing to another. The DEA want Teddy. That's who they want. They want Gustavo to serve him up on a platter. So they're trying to ask and find out all the inner workings of his thing. Now, mind you, there's a lot of people coming after Teddy. Like they got Gustavo and the DEA, they got Ruben and Sissy, which are one, but also two. And then Franklin's also sort of coming at them, hopefully with for it's a lot of people sort of triangulating in on Teddy. But Gustavo knows quite a bit of the operations, and he shows the DEA the tunnel that was used to sort of bring everything in and over and hold. While there, he gets a page from Teddy, and the DA lead kind of tells him, like, stop lying. You need to tell him some form of the truth so that it's easier to sort of cover this stuff up. Let him know you're in the tunnels doing maintenance. And so he gets on the call, and Teddy's like, hey, where are you? He's like, I'm at the tunnels doing maintenance. And he's like, okay, cool. Got it. Last time I was here, the lights were going out, so I'm just fixing that. Makes sense. Easy fix. Teddy then asks him to come on in because he has a question that he wants to roll in. And Uso's like, all right, cool. I'll be there. He then starts going off on the DEA agent because he starts getting paranoid because he now knows how Teddy operates. He's like, he's calling me in because he's found out that the hospital thing I told him wasn't true. And they're like, we handle the hospital stuff. It's like, are you sure? And it just becomes a bit of a contentious point to where the agent's like, you need to relax. He lives in paranoia. You're living in paranoia. Stop this. We're fine. He does not know anything about your kid. Please just go and keep things going the way they are. Franklin meets up with Kane, who's on his hospital bed, and he's pissed. He wants any information that you can possibly give him on Jerome and Louis. And Franklin's kind of being hesitant a little bit. Like, yes, he is at war with his uncle and aunt, but he also doesn't want any harm to happen to his uncle. His aunt, he's probably a little less concerned with, but they come as a package deal. But he's like, I don't know where they're at. I don't know where they're staying in a hotel. I don't know where that's at. And Kane's like, you better find out. I'm gonna need you to find out quickly. Otherwise, I'm gonna start thinking you in with them, and you don't want that. He also wants Ben because he knows that crooked cop works for them, and is the one who shot him. He also knows that Buckley ain't on the parole no more. I mean, he's not on the police force anymore. So now it's a little easier to get at him than it was before. Franklin understands, and a little veiled threat goes a long way. Franklin takes off. The flip side of that, Jerome and Louis go to Sully. Because if you have to deal with one crazy person, you go with a crazier person to sort of figure out how to get out of this Kane situation. And Sully just straight up telling him he's on his ethereal love healing type of situation. He went from one extreme to the other. But he's pretty much like, hey, yo, you need to fix this with Kane. Kane's a lion, and you need to get a part of his pride. You also need to fix stuff with your family. Like, get all of that stuff in-house together. And at that point, Jerome's pager just going off and off and off and off and off, and it's Sissy. He finally gets on the phone with Sissy, and Sissy basically wants to have a meet. And as they leave, Sully's kind of giving them like these origami shapes and like, hey, yo, you need to heal your family, get your family and everything together. Otherwise, it's about to be a mess that comes down on you. And they leave, and as they're leaving, Louis just throws that origami down because she's not about that healing life. She's like, yo, you really want to meet with your family? Sure you want that? You sure you want that dinner? Because Sully also knows that they had their hands in the reason why Kane is in the predicament that he is. And the only people that knew that were the two of them, Buck and Franklin. So Franklin clearly has gotten the message out. It's like, you sure you want to meet this? Because you seem like your nephew is giving out information to get us jammed up. This part hurts, and this is why it was important in the last episode to mention that the kids were in that back seat. Franklin goes to see Dallas, and the boy that he saw in the car, who was full of joy and happy and kind of like eating his candy with his mama, was like, yeah, this is great. Franklin sees him as he's approaching Dallas's home and offers him some money to go get some ice cream. And the joy and the happiness that it was once in his life is now gone. And Franklin lives in this world where he knows who that kid was. He knows that was Diamond's kid. But Franklin lives in this world where he believes money can fix everything. If I throw money at it, it'll be fine. When you're that young, money means absolutely nothing. You're at a pure state, and money means absolutely nothing to you. All he wants is his mom to walk back in that door. Same way with that girl, Tisha, in the very beginning of the last episode. She wanted her dad to come back home. The ramifications of what Franklin is doing and Jerome and all of them are doing has now bled into the community, and it's now bleeding a lot of people without their mother or father. And no money can actually do anything about that. Franklin goes in and sees Dallas, and Dallas is packing up. She's like, no, we out. There was a whole conversation that Diamond had if one of us went out, the other one just leave. Grab the kids and get the hell up out of here. And that is what she's doing. So Franklin now no longer has his security team, if you will. He just leaves without saying goodbye. He's just like, when she hears that, he's like, cool, well then you're done. I don't need to be here. Goodbye. Again, he was willing to just throw money at her. Like, I'll protect you. I'll do anything you want. I'll give you whatever you want. I'll see you when you come back. It's like, no. For them, money is not the end all or fix all for this. Me being alive means more than the money. V meets her mom and Cassandra, and they have a meeting. She kind of lays the land out like what's going on and who they're involved with and what big of a mess that they are in, and that she's pregnant and that Franklin, has gotten us into a bit of a situation. And so she wants to meet with Franklin. So V sets it up. They meet at this rib joint. I love it because Cassandra's kind of like, yo, look, they ain't got ribs like this in Paris. This shit slaps. She is very much she's the antithesis. She's still as smart or smarter than Franklin, but she is very much more like, hey, I'm going to live in the pleasures that I can have. Well, Franklin's very much regimented. They have a meet. And Cassandra's kind of like, you got my daughter in a mess. And he's like, I hear you also gotten your daughter into a mess. She's like, yeah, mine was before you, and yet she's back here with me. Franklin kind of just has to shut up and take that one on the chin. Because yes, all of this is because of you that she's now back with the person she swore not to be back around. But Cassandra starts laying some info. And she's like, I want 20%. Franklin's like, nah, we ain't having all of that. It's a finder's fee of 5%. But then she lays some knowledge on him that there's somebody else at play who helped Teddy save all this money. There had to be multiple offshore accounts. There had to be multiple things. And there had to be someone that at least looked like or resembled you to make this occur, because they had to go in person to set up these accounts. So let me get a week, and I'll take D with me. Let me get a week to go find this person and give you that information. And for whatever I find, give you 10%. I mean, I'll take 10%, and I would love to have a little bit more time in my life with D and my grandkid. Franklin seems to accept that. Now, I don't quite trust her, nor should anybody. I do think she's probably going to take D and go off and get that information, but I don't know if necessarily if she's going to return. Like, I feel like she's going to go off there, get that information for Franklin, give it to him, and then be like, cool, keeping my daughter and my grandkid here safely away from you because you're in too much of a mess. That's just the vibe that I get from her. Carissa gives Teddy enough information to make a composite sketch about the person who was coming after her. Clearly, Ruben. So the reason why Teddy called Oos to the warehouse is to show him that photo. It's like, hey, do you know this person? And at this point, Oos has no clue. Gustavo has no idea who that is. And he feels a little bit relieved that he's not here for something else. So he goes home and grabs a drink. And out the fridge, he then all of a sudden sees the photo of at the wedding with he at Jerome and them's wedding, and he sees that Ruben is in that photo. Now he doesn't know his name; he's like a waiter, but he does not know who he is. So he then pages Franklin for a meet. They meet obviously at another loud location, this time at a wrestling ring. That's a little bit more in Oos's favor or history, and they have a convo. And first thing Oos says, like, I didn't know Teddy was going to steal all your money, and I'm sorry for that. Like, look, if you call me out and say you're sorry, this ain't it. So at that point, then he shows him the photo of Ruben, and Franklin kind of knows. Obviously, he knows who that is. So a deal is kind of worked out. Like, look, I know who this is. I'm not telling you who this is or who this name is until you bring me Teddy. Bring me Teddy, and I'll tell you exactly who this person is. And Oos is kind of like, well, I don't know how that works or why that works and that why we're doing things that way. And Franklin's like, because I know you know who this person is, and I know how you know him from Jerome and them's wedding. And at that point, Uso knows kind of like, yeah, I should not have been there. So yeah, got it. So they work out a deal where bring Teddy to him, he'll give him Ruben. So now Franklin has multiple seeds of people that he's trying to work with, and I think whoever gives him Teddy first is the way that he goes. That there's no allegiance or alliance like Ruben. If you give me Teddy, cool, I'm with you. Uso, if you bring me Teddy, give you Ruben. Like, he doesn't care how it happens. He just wants Teddy brought to him to get his money back. Don't know if it's that easy, but I think having Cassandra kind of go and try to undo all of that money issue before might help him give him a little bit more leverage. This is where this episode, probably one of the best scenes I've seen in a while on Snowfall. Jerome and Franklin finally have their sit down. They have it at a public diner. Franklin's there first, and Jerome walks in and sits down. And Jerome's canvassing the place to see if Franklin has come with anybody else. He's like, look, we're not doing that. A lot of the pleasantries that they normally used to have, Uncle Neff, they don't really get used there. It's very business minded. Jerome wants to tell a story about how his mom, Franklin's mom, wound up in LA. She originally went to the Bay. He was like, that hippie stuff wasn't for me in the Bay, so I came down to LA. When they had you and your dad with Sissy up there, and then your dad got on the sauce and kind of wasn't working out until Sissy came down here, and you were part of that package deal. And he's like, I was a mess at that point in time. I didn't have any purpose. I didn't know what was going on. I just was kind of going through the motions. And then you showed up, and it gave me a purpose. It gave me a purpose to raise you as the man that I think you could become. I felt like I was going to do everything to make you not turn out like your father. And I'm sitting here now wondering how I failed you. And let me check my notes because this is very important, specific. I want to know, how did I F up so bad? How you became this scandalous, cutthroat, bitch-made N-word. Yeah, this isn't going well at all. This is just taking a really wild turn, and from this point on, anything that is said is going to be filled with more hate and more contention. Because it seemed like in that moment, the story that he was telling, you could look in Franklin's eyes. He was like, kind of feeling like, all right, you have raised me. You were my father figure. Perhaps we can get to this. And then when he insults him, starts throwing out those words, uh, Franklin turns on a dime and becomes aggressive and lashes out. He starts lashing out and talking stuff about how you'd be nothing without me. I gave you this life. I gave you a sense of purpose. I gave you a legacy. You would be still, I think, on the front line with like stereos and weights or something like that, to that effect. Basically saying you'd be nothing. You'd be a street dude living on the front lawn. But what's crazy about that, and this is what we sort of had seen before when he got into music, when he wanted to be a producer, I feel like he would have been perfectly fine had that life remained the same and he remained in that. Franklin and Louis have sort of taken Jerome and kind of put him in this whirlwind, and he doesn't really want to be there. This is where Franklin messes up. He calls Louis out of her name. He refers to her. One, he says B, and he kind of lets it slide. Then he calls her a trick. It's like, you let that trick come and ruin your wife. In your life. And at that point, Jerome smacks the shit out of Franklin in public. And see, this is where a lot of this is happening. I think, obviously, I don't know if the two of them can have this conversation behind closed doors or just with Sissy, but doing this in public has made this where you feel like you're trying to get a one up. You're trying to up me or show me out, show me up in front of people. Franklin continues to talk shit. To which Jerome smacks him again in public, and then questions his man. Who's like, "Man, you ain't gonna do shit." To which Franklin stands up and pulls out a gun in public. All of this is happening in public, and I keep repeating that term because there is no coming back from this. They have now sort of put their flag in the sand in front of everybody that their manhood has sort of been questioned in front of each person. Jerome's more so defending his wife, but also defending, like, you just put a gun to my head and you didn't pull the trigger. And mind you, Jerome is sitting here saying in this, like, he is actively saying he does not want to be a part of this world. But because he is, he's backing up his wife. But he's saying, pull the trigger, pull it. And Jerome and Franklin can't. He screams, puts the gun away, and walks out. Jerome stands to watch him leave, and as he's watching him leave, the young girl at the very beginning of Fallout, Tisha, is there eating, and Jerome sees her. A further imaging for him that this is not a life that he wants. And I still keep saying that no matter how this goes, when this all is said and done, something terrible is going to happen to Jerome. He's the one player in this. While he's done things, he doesn't want to be here, and I feel like he's getting dragged in by not just his Franklin and Louis, but Sissy's a part of this now too. It's trying to get revenge on Teddy. It's just now he's the one bystander that's kind of been following whoever his heart belongs to, and it sucks. Franklin leaves, not really paying attention to street traffic. He is dazed and confused, gets to his car and just starts honking on the horn, beating the horn, and you can see tears. He just lost his father. Second father. He already lost his one father. He's now lost his uncle / second father. So now he is all on his own, outside of his wife and his mom, who is now in business with the KGB. He has nobody that he can kind of call on or go deal with the manly stuff or the man stuff. Because Lee's gone too. So it's just, he's out here on his own. It has nobody to sort of feed off of. Whew. That was a powerful scene. Powerful episode to sit down. I knew based on the phone conversation that they had in the Fallout that when they did get face to face, it was going to end in a manner that was like this. It was very much Jerome trying to son Franklin and thinking maybe that might fix some of this the way that he could. Like, hey, this might be the way. Nobody ever put a hand in you. Maybe we need to, but it's a little too late because now he believes he's the boss, and he put a gun to him. All bets are off at this point. And I'm interested to see how often the remembrance of Sissy, and that being Sissy's brother, comes in to save the points that he won't drop a dime on King. I feel like Buckley, he's going to be gone pretty soon. Like, I feel like Franklin doesn't have any onus to keep him around. And maybe if you take him off the board, you get some of the leverage of not having police jam you up all the time. But it is going to be interesting with all these balls in the air to try to get Teddy. Who gets Teddy to Jerome first? I mean, who gets Teddy to Franklin first? And now the Jerome no longer has the protection or thought of like that's my nephew with Franklin. How long before Louis puts the order of like let's just take him out? Because while he doesn't respect or have anything for Franklin, he does still have it for his sister. So he doesn't want to make her um, without her husband and without her son. But there's going to be a time when his heart goes with Louis more, and he kind of is like, well, she's the one. Something's terrible is going to happen to Jerome, and I just don't. It's going to be sad because he's the one character that I think has the least amount of energy for this life. Powerful episode, great ending. Look now. I'm excited. I'm back on. All right, you got me. The tiger, the drug wedding. It's a thing of the past. We're in here for final season of Snowfall, and you got me because those two episodes created a story that I am now fully in for this final season to see what we got. And there's going to be a lot of bodies on this floor and a lot of turning on people that used to have a relationship. What did you guys think about the second episode of the final season called The Sit Down? You can leave your thoughts and comments in the comments below. If you haven't already, you can follow us on Twitter at HollywoodADI. You can hit us up on email at HollywoodAlreadyDidIt@gmail.com. We also have a podcast by the same name. That's on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere that plays podcasts. We're there. And like always, I got my ticket. You got yours.